And we're now going to turn it over to Dr. Schiller, who I'm just going to do a little intro of you, Eric.
Okay.
Dr. Schiller has a PhD in hydraulics and a master's of theology. He is fluent in 4 languages: English, French, Spanish, and Swahili. He's a retired professor at the University of Ottawa. He's a water engineer. His expertise is in hydraulics and water resource management, especially as related to developing countries. And he has also worked on water resource planning and river basin management. He has had extensive water consulting experience in several countries in Africa and Latin America, and for over 10 years was involved in water scarcity issues in the Middle East and North Africa region. We're grateful he's in Ottawa and spending his retirement years as an environmental and social justice activist, and continues to be a dedicated member of OWSAG. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Schiller.
Thank you, Marianne, and welcome everyone to this wonderful World Water Day get-together. I've been asked to say some words on the topic of water and plastic don't mix, and I'm very glad to do that. First of all, let us together ponder water. We live on one amazing planet. 70% of our planet is covered with water. We have 2 large polar caps frozen. We have lakes and rivers. Water is here in abundance. And when we look out into the world, into the universe, trying to find another planet like ours, we can't find one even remotely like ours. We keep looking, but we haven't found yet a planet anything like ours for having as much water. And sometimes we find one that we say, there once was some water here, like Mars, there once was some water. Why do we do this? Because we realize that if there's water, there's a good chance there will soon be life. In fact, here's something to think about. We all began in water. We swam in amniotic fluid in our mother's womb. And think about this. As you're sitting here, you are more than 50% water. You are more than 50% water. Somewhere between 55 and 60%. We are water. We're creatures of water. And also, without water, we would have no food to eat. There is no known plant that can grow without water. So we need water to grow the plants so that we can have something to eat and survive. In fact, if we don't get water to replenish our bodies in 4 or 5 days, we are going to become dehydrated. I was once dehydrated. It's not a nice experience. And soon after that, we would pass away. So water is so fundamental to everything in our life. We couldn't live without it. That's the one side of the story. Now, the other side of the story is this plastic thing. So let's look at plastics a little bit. Where did plastics come from? Well, they came from living things, flora and fauna, millions of years ago, who flourished in abundance, and they died, and they became encased in the crust of the earth. And after a long process, they turned into what we call fossil material. Now, fossil material is dead now. It used to be living, but now it's dead. And we began to discover this to be very useful because it burns so easily and was good for creating energy. The Industrial Revolution in the 1700s discovered coal. And with coal, we could make our engines run, make our steam engines run. And so coal is the solid form of fossil fuels. Then a little over 100 years ago, we knew it was there before, but it began to be exploited, petroleum, the liquid form. And we turned into using all our locomotion using petroleum. And this has been going on for well over 100 years. And now finally, we've discovered fossil fuels in its gaseous form, which is natural gas or propane gas. So basically all of what we've been doing with fossil fuels is burning it. It's great for creating energy. You might say, wait a minute, I thought you were going to talk about plastics. Oh yeah, plastics. Uh, we have now discovered that we can also derive plastics from fossil materials. I want to personalize this. In the year 1969, that's 52 years ago, I'm a water engineer, and our family came back from Africa in 1969. And 1969, there was a festival. It was called the Woodstock Festival. It was a whole bunch of young people getting together to oppose the war in Vietnam, and also to do something about human rights and integration in the United States. I remember watching this documentary, and one part of the documentary, one person said, "Hey, dude, you know what I saw? I saw some people, they were drinking water out of a plastic bottle." And the guy, "Oh, no way, man. Why would you do that? That's ridiculous." "Oh, yes, I really did. I saw it." And he did. About 50 years ago, although the industrial municipal tap water was pretty well developed, we began, or some people began, to drink water from plastic bottles. And in 20 years development, we've now reached the stage where right now, and listen to this statistic, globally, in 1 minute, 1 million plastic bottles are produced and consumed. 1 million per minute. And if this keeps up, there was the Davos Economic Forum, but this is not a bunch of tree huggers and green activists. These are a bunch of businessmen, and they heard a report that said, if we keep this up, using all this fossil fuel to make plastic containers, much of which finds its way to the ocean, because all water finds its way to the ocean, and there's huge islands of this floating plastic. If we keep this up, by the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the water than fish. This is serious, folks. This is what's happened. This is from the fossil fuels that we used to burn and now turn into plastic. We're creating a monster of a problem. Now, the interesting thing is, while all this is going on, the municipal tap water was also developing. We have parallel streams here. In fact, in 1969, most cities had pretty good municipal tap water systems, and we got good water out of the tap, and it's only gotten better now. In Ottawa, we get our water mainly from the Ottawa River. We have 2 huge water treatment plants, and our water is of excellent quality. It's totally safe. There are no bacteria nor viruses in it. There's only a few limited beneficial minerals in it. And this water in 1 day is monitored 300 times. You say, wait a minute, how can you do that? Well, most of it's automatic monitoring. And why is it so regulated? Because if anything went wrong, we got to know fast, because a lot of people are drinking this stuff. We have highly regulated, excellent quality, abundant water coming out of our taps at a price that is unbeatable. Now, here's our problem. While plastic water, bottled water industry is growing, we have developed a high quality, low cost, safe, efficient water system, and the two are going on together. Which is better? Which is better? Plastic bottles of water or municipal tap water? In 2018, the McGill University said, let's test this stuff. Let's test this water from these plastic bottles. And they took 5 major brands. And the brands were Aquafina, made by Pepsi-Cola, Dasani by Coca-Cola, Naya, Exa, and Nestle. And they tested these bottles of water, did detailed tests. They found that 93% of these samples had microplastics in them. Now, look, let's be honest, microplastics are everywhere. There's even some, a little bit, in us, and even some in tap water. But there's a huge amount more in plastic water bottles. If you're trying to combat the problem of microplastics in water, then putting the water in a plastic bottle is not a good idea. In fact, studies from Germany have shown that if you leave the water in the plastic bottle long enough, the chemicals in the plastic bottle will leach into the water. So the situation is this: we can safely say of the two, municipal tap water, when it's working right, and plastic bottle, the better quality water is municipal tap water. It's more highly regulated. There's no way that bottled water is regulated as much as tap water. And it's efficient. It comes out of your tap and it's much, much cheaper. In fact, the film showed that when you buy bottled water, you're paying 1,000 to 2,000 times as much. Now you might say, well, how in the heck did this happen? How could it be that plastic bottles of water are so popular when municipal tap water is really so good? And the film pointed this out. It's the power of advertising, friends. That is one of the biggest industries going, power of advertising. The average person sees between 4,000 and 10,000 adverts a day. You're getting your stuff free on the internet, yes, and you're being advertised. You watch your TV and it's advertised. Advertising has changed our minds, or a lot of people's minds, about water and made us to believe that the plastic water bottle is better. Also, it's comfort and convenience. What is more convenient? You're out walking around, you're thirsty. Hey, go in, buy a bottle of water, plastic water, and pitch it. That's very convenient. So comfort, convenience, and the power of advertising. Now, that's what we're talking about. And I want to just bring this, there's been a new dilemma emerged. It's made this even worse. Now, first, the good news story is this. Look, people are waking up about the environment. They're really waking up, and it's becoming a steamroller. And people are divesting from fossil fuels up to $15 trillion because we now know that we can create renewable energy from solar and wind, and we can convert our cars from fossil fuel to electric, and in fact, eventually, in the next few years, electric cars are going to kill fossil fuel cars. Why? Because they'll be more efficient, they'll be cheaper, they're easier to make, because they're much, much simpler, and they're easier to repair. Electric cars are coming in, and they're going to use renewable energy. The fossil fuel industry says to itself, this is not good for us, because about 28% of all our material, our fossil fuel, has been for fuel for fossil fuel cars. And it looks like fossil fuel cars are going to be replaced by electric. We've got to do something. You know what they're going to do? They are now planning to build huge factories to take the fossil material and create single-use plastics. They're planning here in North America to put $400 billion into the transfer. So we can't burn the stuff anymore because people don't like it. We're going to just make more and more single-use plastic. You know, if you think I'm exaggerating, walk into your latest food store or your latest electronic store, and you will see that so many things are wrapped in single-use plastic. It doesn't have to be this way. Going back again to 1969, how did we survive then without single-use plastics? We use glass, reusable. We use paper. Okay, paper is made from trees, but it can be recycled and it's biodegradable. And we use all kinds of renewable containers. So this is what we're up against. We're up against a fossil fuel industry that has decided, since they can't burn so much of the stuff, we will make more and more single-use plastic. Now, this is plastic water bottles, but all kinds of other things too. So where are we? Well, the good news, we always got to stress the good news story. The good news story, people are waking up about this. And in fact, governments are saying, look, if it's true in 2050, we don't change our ways, there'll be more plastic in the oceans than fish. This is not a good scenario. So the European Union has passed a law, and they've said by 2030 or so, we will get rid of all single-use plastic. Now, finally, let's come to Canada. Hooray, we're in Canada. Did you know in the year 2018, our wonderful federal government passed a law and saying we too will get rid of single-use plastics. And we will come up with the final list of how we're going to do it by the end of this year, 2021. And our goal is to get rid of single-use plastics by 2030. Hey, that's only 20 years away. So what they've done as a start in this, they come up with a list of the things they're going to reduce, get banned as a first step. Now, some of us looked at this list, and I'll just go quickly through it. It's plastic grocery bags, that's good. Cutlery, plastic cutlery, that's good. Some of them are a bit debatable, like straws, stir sticks, and six-pack rings for beer. Okay. And then the final one is foodware made from hard plastic that is easy to recycle. Well, why isn't plastic water bottle in there? It's a food, and the trouble is it's not easy to recycle for all kinds of reasons. We can hardly recycle 10% of it. So our federal government said we're going to come up with a plan to work our way to 2030, get rid of all single-use plastics. Here's our first step in it. They gave us a date of discussion last year, 2020, December the 9th, to say, what do you think of our list of 6 things? And OWSAG, the Ottawa Water Study Action Group, together with, we didn't lead it, we just worked with them, the Council of Canadians, the Suzuki Foundation, Greenpeace, Environmental Defense, and even here in Ottawa, our wonderful Ecology Ottawa, all bombarded the government saying, this list is not credible, it's not robust enough. The one thing that we see missing, is only one of many, is you have no plastic water bottles. And the alternative, the environmental alternative is there. It's coming out of the tap. And so they've taken our suggestions, and they're now working on a plan. Keep your eyes on it. By the end of this year, they're going to come up with their plan to start moving to get rid of single-use plastics. So here's something we can do, and I'm going to kind of end here. What can we do about all this? Well, you can write to Jonathan Wilkinson, the Minister of the Environment, and say, we're watching you. We're waiting for the list of banned single-use plastics. We want it to be much more robust than the first list you came up with. And please tell us what you're doing on it. Everyone can write a letter. But by the way, Jonathan Wilkinson, our environmental minister, has a wonderful assistant. Her name is Cynthia Bunbury. And I've had talks with her about this, and she's sort of online. She says, you're right, these plastic bottles, especially water, is very important. I said, Cynthia, has the minister been lobbied about this by the Canadian Bottled Water Association, which has now changed its name to the Canadian Beverage Association because they don't want to make it clear that they're hitting bottled water? And she said, oh, yes, they have. So this is what we're up against. The bottled water industry is lobbying the Minister of the Environment, so we've got to lobby even stronger. That's what we can do. The other thing we can do, and it was mentioned by Marianne, that OWSAG in June 2019, that's almost 2 years ago, June 2019, we finally, after 13 years of lobbying and badgering and educating our city council, finally got city council to pass a regulation saying we will get rid of all single-use plastics in all municipal buildings, period. One thing about government, it's one thing to make a promise. Boy, it's another thing to implement it with action. And that's why we're getting all worked up about this. We've got to help the government implement the promises that they said. We've been having discussions with city council, and we now find out that when you promise to get rid of all single-use plastics, that's just water, but water is a key one, but there's also other juices and other things. We find that they're bound by contracts. And the contracts say you can't end the contract until we sell tens of thousands of bottles of stuff. So we persuaded them, look, in the meantime, as an educational step, take bottled water out and let the number of bottles to be sold be the other things. This will be educational to people. Oop, I can't find my bottled water in the vending machine, and oh boy, here's a fountain, and now I've got to find myself a usable container and do it. So we're persuading them to do this. We're also persuading them to put more money into advertising how good their own municipal tap water is. They've got a budget of $95 million for the water distribution system. You know how much they spend on advertising how good this water is out of $95 million? Diane Holmes, our ex-counselor, told us this, $10,000 a year. That's not enough. You've got to tell people, look, the better water, the cheaper water, the better quality, better regulated water is coming right out of your tap. And so there's going to be a move led by, I guess I can tell her name, Catherine McKinney, who's been leading the charge. And she's getting support from a whole bunch of other counselors to push this through and say, let's advertise our water better and let's get working on the regulation that we passed. So what can we do? Each of us has a city councilor. And if you talk to them about anything, just throw this in. By the way, what's happening with the regulation to limit single-use plastics in municipal buildings, and what's happening with the promotion of your own wonderful tap water? And that, I think, is my almost become a rant because I get very worked up about this. My words for our wonderful World Water Day, and we look forward to hopefully some feedback and comments from you. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Eric. Your words are always provocative and inspirational, and your passion for this topic of the nastiness of plastic water bottles is palpable and transfers through everything you say and do. Now, to give everyone an opportunity to speak, Emma is going to place you in